Welcome back, my friends, to the Derate The Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the Derate The Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. Now, if you've ever felt disheartened by the toxic divide that's tearing at the fabric of our society, you're not alone. But what if there were practical, real-life steps we could take to turn things around? This week, I am absolutely thrilled to sit down with two of my fellow braver angels, Beth Malow and Doug Teschner, to talk about their powerful and timely new book, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. Beth and Doug bring a wealth of experience and compassion to the table, and their book is a beacon of hope for anyone looking to foster real connection in these divisive times. We talk about the emotional toll of political strife, how conflict entrepreneurs are profiting from keeping us angry, and why self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools that we have for change. This isn't just about talking across divides, it's about listening, learning, and choosing to be part of the solution. We dig into the skills that help mend relationships, the mindset shifts that spark understanding, and the kind of activism that actually builds bridges instead of burning them down. Oh, and make sure to check out their free Substack newsletter, Together Across Differences, at togethernow.substack.com. You don't want to miss this one, friends. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Beth Malow and Doug Teschner. Here we go. Beth Malow and Doug Teschner, my beautiful Braver Angels colleagues, how are you this evening? Thank you for joining me on the Derate The Hate podcast.
Well, we're happy to be here, Wilk.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you two have decided to join me for this conversation today. I know we've been talking through different channels about this book that you all have coming out soon, and a Substack that you both started, and a lot of it centers around the work that we've been doing for years together at Braver Angels, and it's just a real treat for me to have you here, joining me here on the Derate The Hate podcast. So thank you so much to both of you for taking the time. So let's dive right into this. So the book that's going to be coming out soon, and you can tell the DTH listeners when, but the book that's going to be coming out soon is called Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. So let's start there. And Beth, let's start with you. Tell me, or more specifically, tell the DTH listeners, what is it about the work that we've been doing, about our politically divided times, that made the two of you decide to join forces and write this, what by all rights is going to be an incredibly important book for our time?
Yeah,
so
well,
let's start.
Well, this has been a labor of love, and I couldn't think of anybody else to write it with who would be so extraordinary. But Doug and I have been working together closely since I moved to Vermont last summer from Tennessee. I've been able to go into the New Hampshire State Legislature and work with him, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment, on workshops for the legislature. And we've also done workshops for the community. These are Braver Angels workshops, which I know you're very familiar with. It's out of that work, we've realized that there's a hunger that people have for learning how to work together better and cross those divides that are just so toxic right now in our lives. That really motivated me when Doug asked me and invited me to join the project to say, absolutely, yes, I'm thrilled to be part of this.
Yeah, super excited about that because there is a hunger. So, Doug, why don't you kind of expand on that for me? Tell me about this hunger. What have you been seeing up there in the New England area as far as a hunger for finding a resolution or working on these toxically polarized times?
Well, let me just step back a little bit and go back to Gettysburg, the convention we had at the Braver Angel Convention, which, was actually 2 summers ago. And, at that opening session, we were asked, why are you here? And I wrote down on my card, I'm here because I worry that my grandchildren are not going to enjoy the benefits of this country that I've had. And that has sort of been a real motivator for me. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I suppose I could be just having a quiet retirement. But I've been doing this Bravery Angel work, and I looked at, wait, what can we do? What can I do to step it up? And I sort of made a pledge, I guess you would say, or I'm not really the sort of guy that does a lot of New Year's resolutions, but I did one at the end of 2023. I said, I'm going to write a book. And I started off thinking this wasn't going to be so difficult. I'll have it done in a few months. But from the beginning, I wanted to reach out to other people and other partners and other Braver Angel folks. And Beth joined me at partway through the effort about the time that she moved up here. And she's been just a great teammate. But, I'm just concerned. Where are we going? And I think the challenge for us in Braver Angels and other people that are concerned about this is how do we broaden the message? How do we create a national movement? We've been very successful in Braver Angels with workshops and alliance chapters, but how do we take it farther? How do we get more people involved? How do we touch into sort of the pain people are feeling out there? And, when we started writing the book, we were thinking about, we want to get help if we want to appeal to people to make our country better. But as we got into it more, we said, wait a minute, let's step back. Let's help people deal with their relationships. We know that people are struggling with just the people that they know and their family members and, that wonderful family and politics workshop that Braver Angel has, but I don't think it gets emphasized enough. I said, let's appeal to people's self-interest. Never mind getting them to help save the country. And then we took it, as we were writing, took it down to another level, which was how about people's mental health? I mean, people are so stressed out right now about politics. And, let's try to help people, find a way to take a deep breath and step back. And what can we do about it? And how can you feel better about it? So this is a huge challenge. We know that, and you know that. That's why you're doing this podcast.
Right.
And we're trying to do our part with the book. And as we talk to people, I think people are hungry. People are looking for something better. I think people are concerned. One of the sources we tapped into is the Hidden Tribes report that talks about how the extremes are the ones that are driving the political agenda. But there's an exhausted majority out there that's not really getting enough attention. And, we're trying to appeal to the exhausted majority. We're trying to appeal to everybody, even the people on the extremes. There has to be a better way to do this than demonizing people on the other side. But people in the exhausted majorities who are just kind of like this. We got a picture in our book of people who are just kind of got their ears over their hands over their ears, and as people are yelling over them, there's this exhausted majority, and we can rise up, this exhausted majority, say, wait a minute, we got to find a better way. We got to talk to our neighbors. So I think that's really the appeals of the book.
Yeah, well, and I think it's hugely important trying to figure. That is the $1 million question. How do we get more people involved? How do we get people interested in the idea of the work that we do? Because I find people are hungry for this, but a lot of times they don't want to get involved. They want to stay away. The reason that they're in the middle that isn't making all the noise is because They don't like all the noise. They don't like all the ugliness that they see on either side of the spectrum. You know, our friend Manu Meal from Bridge USA talks about the hopeful majority, but I think a lot of that hopeful majority is hopeful, but they're exhausted and they don't want any part of the ugliness and the toxicity. The ones, and then the other thing you talk about there, Doug, is how those people on either end of the spectrum are the really toxic ones. And those are the ones that I talk about as being so involved in using fog, fear, outrage, and grievance as this model for keeping people scared and mad and aggrieved over whether it be some real or perceived grievance. But they have an uncanny ability, these outrage entrepreneurs and grievance grifters, on either side, because it's certainly by no means is it exclusive to one side or the other, no matter who tells you what, but they have this uncanny ability to whip up people's fear and outrage. So Beth, talk to me a little bit about that, because that's the $1 million question. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, just like we have the exhausted majority image in our book, we also are super excited. We just talked to our graphics design person about our conflict entrepreneur or outrage entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. We are going to have a crocodile eating or attempting to chomp on the American flag. And we just can't wait. We are super pumped about how every time we introduce conflict entrepreneur, those forces that you alluded to that are driving us apart and stirring up trouble, we will be including that image because we want it to be a little playful. We want it to be a little bit funny, but it really is quite serious. And Amanda Ripley, who wrote the book High Conflict, talks about the conflict entrepreneurs and the idea that I actually think that this is the way forward. Americans want to believe what they see. We're rugged individualists. We want to think for ourselves, and we don't want people mucking with us, whether it be outside foreign countries, right, like China and Russia, or other forces like social media. There's forces on both sides, I think we would agree, not just on the left or the right, but really both sides, and then even foreign countries that are just trying to stir up trouble and stir up division. And we're better than that as Americans. And that's one of the themes that we revisit again and again throughout this book, whether it's telling our personal stories of how we've overcome those people who were, or forces that were trying to stir up trouble, or how you can be, for example, a better consumer of what you read about in the news. We really want to empower our readers to think for themselves and say, I'm better than this. I can transform this time.
Absolutely. And I want to expand on that, because I do think as Americans we are better than that. I do think as Americans we are so much better than what we're seeing from the loudest voices, whether they be the loud voices in politics or the loud voices in the media or the loud voices that have become so popular in social media. Each one of those things, in my opinion, represent such a small segment of who we are. And unfortunately, Doug, we are not being accurately represented as Americans by those loudest voices. We are being shown to be something that we are not, because they are the ones that get the most airtime. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, we know, like from our Brave Angel workshops, you get people who are on different sides in a room, with the right kind of design and the right kind of conversation. People walk away and say, "Oh, we have a lot more in common than we thought." We always get that when people come to those workshops. And what we've truly tried to talk about in the book is getting people to kind of step back and say, wait a minute, how are we being manipulated by these conflict entrepreneurs, by people who are making money or power by trying to divide us. And that's why we like that image of eating the American flag. These people are not doing this for the country. They're doing it for themselves.
Right. That's right.
And so a big part of this is getting people to sort of say, wait a minute, I need to be a little more reflective of what I'm seeing, what I'm watching. We have a long chapter that talks about all the causes of this polarization, of which there are many. But I think the technology aspect, the conflict entrepreneurs, and the way the social media works is the algorithms that push people apart, that attract the most extreme stuff. And that's what you keep seeing in your feed. And it plays on fears, like you said. It's playing on our worst instincts. And it's just so dangerous. Another thing we're really trying to emphasize in the book is getting people to sort of step back and think about their own personal values. What's really important to you and who you are? And then ask them to think a little bit about the people who voted on the other side. Maybe make a list of the characteristics of what they think about those people. And then kind of compare their value list to how they're thinking about other people. And I think most people would step back and say, wait a minute, maybe I'm not living up to my values when I think about the people on the other side of politics. So a lot of this is self-reflection and looking within yourself, digging deep within yourself. These are and reflecting on what we're seeing and how this media environment and social media environment and these conflict entrepreneurs, how it's all playing on us. And then of course we got to give people hope that okay, what am I going to do about it? But it starts with that inner work and that inner reflection.
Yeah, the stories of what we're going to do, I think, are critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I and that's the thing, right? Is be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And Doug, I want to go back to something that you said right in the intro, and kind of have you both play on this a little bit, because it's something that is so dearly important to me. Doug, you talked about, leaving a world or a better world for your grandkids. And I mean, I know you're a parent and a grandparent. Beth, I know you're a parent and I'm a parent. And one of the reasons that I started doing this podcast and started doing the work that I do with Braver Angels is because I knew that the toxicity that I once engaged in was not doing anything to make the world a better place. I look around and I often wonder, I try not to ascribe motives to people anymore in the things that they do or the things that they say, but it's really hard to look at some of these people that are doing and saying the things that they are doing and saying and believe that they have any other motivation than like what you said, Doug, they're doing it to benefit themselves, not to benefit the country. It hurts me to see that there are so many people out there that are willing to just completely shed themselves of any responsibility when it comes to the humanity of others or what's going to become of our country if we continue to say and do the things that they do. We see it in politics. And that's why I often say that those who represent us are often not the best of us, because the things that they say and do are not something that's going to produce something positive. Talk to me, Beth, and then you can play on this too, Doug, but being part of the solution, and we will definitely get into, the solutions that you guys talk about in your book, beyond the Politics of Contempt, what you guys are doing with your Substack, Together Across Differences. These things are hugely important, and when it comes to being part of the solution instead of part of the problem, there are way too many people out there falling short, whether it's intentional or not. I don't know. I can't pretend to believe I know what everybody's motivations are, but we can see what the results are. And as our friend John Wood Jr. says, toxic polarization is the one problem that ensures all other problems will not be solved. So how do we become part of the solution instead of so many who have definitely made a home making themselves part of the problem?
I think that there are some of us who are not necessarily driving the conflict, but are getting caught up in the conflict. And we refer to them as conflict enablers. And it's so easy to be in that category. I mean, I think I've been in that category for sure at certain times in my life. It's often driven by fear. You too, yeah.
Yeah.
It's often driven by fear. It's driven by a sense of wanting to belong to a group. We call them, well, Monica Guzman talks about the silos and all the siloing. And I feel that that is something that we definitely address in the book. So that is when Doug was saying reflecting and starting with yourself. And how do you feel about people who might have voted for a different candidate in the last election? That's a very big focus of our group. And I'm sorry, of our book. So really reflecting, we both include a lot of stories, personal stories about how we've learned to see humanity in others. I think that's just really, really important. I think that is the first step to recognize that you may be a conflict enabler. It's not fun to think about that, but it's very possible. And if a light bulb can go off and you can say, hey, I think I just read about myself, then that's the first step toward changing. And if you change, the people around you can change. It's like learning to depolarize not just yourself, but your entire peer group. That's very powerful.
That self-reflection is huge. And Doug, you can talk a little bit about this, but that circle of influence, like Beth is talking about, once you start to depolarize yourself and you start feeling and seeing the things that you've done to enable this kind of thing, it's amazing how you'll start to see the people within your circle change with that.
Yeah, it's so much us, the us versus them culture has sort of become so dominant. And if you're not us, you're them. We talk about this actually. We were on a podcast with a big group, anti-Trump group called Rise for Freedom. There were 768 people on the Zoom, Wilk, a couple of weeks ago. But they asked us to come and talk about how to talk to people you disagree with. And I was a little skeptical going into that meeting. But, a lot of those people I was trying to keep up with, I can't imagine what it's like keeping up with the comments with 768 people. But a lot of the people were taking it in. And, we're trying to appeal to people, okay, do you want to be an activist? You want to go protest? And we're saying, yeah, that's fine. But can you do it in a way that that invites people to your side or welcomes people to your side? Somebody told me a story. I didn't have it in the book because I couldn't quite remember who told it to me, but they were at some kind of a protest, and a guy in a pickup truck drove up, and he had a bumper sticker for I forget whether it was abortion or what it was. And it was clear the guy kind of wanted to talk to the people, and they started belittling him, and he drove off. Right. How do you bring people over? If you want to be an activist, fine, but do it as a bridge builder. Do it in a way that brings bridge building. And we're a little concerned about some of the activism we're seeing in some of the groups right now. Are they doing that, or is it just, let's just badmouth the other people? And even in the Hidden Tribes report, they talk about the people on the extremes. They want to vanquish the other side. But sometimes when I have conversations with people, I say, what's your goal? Right. And what's your goal? And it kind of brings them up a little short. Like, do you want civil war? Is that what you want? Right. I mean, or if you want to bring people to your side, you're not going to get there by shaming them or telling them they're stupid or telling them they're ignorant. But this is what we see. And,
see it all the time.
It's very dangerous. And if people can't, so the most important thing has got to be start with yourself, look at yourself. And we all make assumptions about other people, and it's just human nature. You see somebody and what they're wearing and whatever. And there's also a part of the problem here, as we see it, is, there's a decline in basic kindness and how people treat each other. It used to be pretty rare to see somebody give you the finger on the highway. Yeah. But people do that more now, and it's become almost socially acceptable. And so there's a bigger issue. It's bigger than politics. And this is, we're interested in Robert Putnam's work, Bowling Alone, and also his most recent book, The Upswing. He talked about a decline in the Gilded Age. It's interesting. I've seen that term come across, but that was sort of a period, kind of a dark period in this country in the late 1800s. But he said from there was an upswing up to about 1960. And then this current situation we're in, was when the decline started. So what are we going to do to create another upswing? It's more than politics. It's how we see and treat each other.
Yes.
We bring up a lot of themes, as Doug said in the book. We don't just tell people what we think is happening, and we don't just tell them what they should do, but we really try to bring up a lot of thought leaders and themes like Putnam. I like the work Braver Angels is doing with the citizen-led solutions that Steve Saltwick and others are taking a lead on. Community. I even have something on the science communication and the work we're doing with the Truth and Trust Project, Wilk. We're trying to use as many examples as we can to show people a way forward that will relate to them. And I just want to say one quick thing about the activism is not incompatible with bridge building. If you really want to be an effective activist, you need to be able to understand where the people who disagree with you are coming from.
That's absolutely
Because if you ever want to have an opportunity to influence them, you have to understand them first, and they have to feel like they've been heard. So I'm a big believer that bridge building and activism go hand in hand, regardless of whether it's local government issues or more national issues.
And I agree. I think Doug makes an incredible point when he brings up the example of the guy in the pickup truck drives up to the protesters and has a genuine desire to, understand what these people are. What is your cause? What are you trying to promote here? And when they start to belittle him, driving away is the perfect example, right? Because nobody's going to just sit there. I talk a lot about people, once you belittle them, either belittle their opinion or belittle them or whatever, their ears slam shut. I mean, so often I'll ask the question of people, whether it be somebody on the left asking of people on the right or somebody on the right asking of people on the left, how often do you run into somebody on the other side who can accurately represent your position on a particular topic in a way that you would agree? And very seldom do I get an answer of, oh, of course, yeah, I run into them all the time. It's just not a thing. It's because far too often people, when they try to have one of these conversations, they are immediately attacked or they're demeaned or belittled for being one of them, going to the us versus them thing. One of the greatest examples of this whole thing about making assumptions, like you were talking about, Doug, is Monica Guzman's statement, those who are underrepresented in our lives will be overrepresented in our mind and our imaginations. We begin to make assumptions about people we truly know nothing about, and we make them out to be some kind of boogeyman, and instead of actually getting to know who they are. And then we talked about that pro-humanity stance earlier, Beth, where people forget that these are people. These are human beings. They have kids and grandkids like we do, right? They have something to fight for, and they probably they've justified in some way what they're doing, what they're saying, but sometimes we just need to give them the solution and show them how important it is to listen with genuine curiosity, because if they do not and they go on the attack right away, that other person, their ears slam shut, they aren't listening anymore. Do you actually want to accomplish something with this conversation, or do you just want it to shut down with no resolution whatsoever and probably end in a worse position than you started with?
Absolutely. And I would argue that if you can figure out how to connect with someone, and as you say, they feel heard, they've heard you, they may disagree with you, but they've heard you, I feel like you can solve any problem. it's cutting through that initial demonizing, I guess is one word. Once you can see each other as human beings, then I think you can share your perspectives and you can solve any problem. I really feel that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we wrap up our time here together, Beth and Doug, what I want you to do is I want you to, I guess, finish off. I'm going to give each one of you a final word here, but finish off by telling the Derate the Hate listeners and all our friends at Braver Angels and everybody who might just be hearing about this for the very first time, what is each one of your biggest takeaway that you want people to take away from this book, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times? And then, of course, people can obviously visit your Substack, too, Together Across Differences. So, Doug, let me start with, actually, Beth, I'll start with you, and then, Doug, I'll give you the final word since we started with Beth in the beginning. How's that sound?
I feel that if you want to learn how to just be better in your own life, as Doug said, you want a better physical health, mental health. You want to learn how to get along with your uncle. This is an important book. If you even want to go a step further and make a difference for our country, it's a really important book. And we do it not just by laying out the problem, but by giving you concrete solutions and telling a lot of stories from our own experiences so that you can understand where you're at and where you want to be, reflect on your values, and then share the book with other people so that they can make a difference in the world and in their lives also.
Beautiful. Doug?
Yeah, for me, it starts with hope. We're trying to give people hope. People are so discouraged and down, but there's hope. There's hope for our country, and we give concrete steps of what you can do to bring that hope to life. And we're not saying it's easy or simple, but our book will be out this summer. We're really pushing on it. We were hoping for the 4th of July. We might not make the 4th of July, but we'll hope at least make it the month of July. And we have the Substack. If you go Together Across Differences, you'll find it. We'd love to. We got more than 600 subscribers. We're sharing different ideas, themes that are in the book. It's free. I mean, yeah, there's an option for paid if you want to help with the cost, but that's not the most important thing. Is just to be on there as a free subscriber. We'd love to connect with you and have you be part of this journey with us.
That's wonderful. So the Substack is togethernow.substack.com. Together Across Differences is the name of the Substack. Here with Beth Malow and Doug Teschner, good friends of mine from Braver Angels. The upcoming book that will be out this summer, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. I'm so grateful for both of you, for the work that you're doing, for the work that we do at Braver Angels, and looking forward to the book. Thank you so much to both of you, Beth and Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.